Panel discussion of the summit on the topic Responsible Gen AI, Aligning AI Innovation with Ethical Banking Practices. It is my privilege to invite on stage the panel of speakers for the session, Shri Rudra Pratap Singh, CISO, Union Bank of India, Shri Anthony Basera, Sales Director, India and SAARC Rubrik, Shri Sudeep Kumar Das, Head SE, India and SAARC Tenable, and our moderator for this session, Shri Prashant Mehendru, Partner PwC. Over to you, Mr. Mehendru.
Thank you. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. So, session after lunch, the boring session. So, I hope everybody settled in, had a good bite. So, welcome panel. So, this particular topic of generative AI is something that is now becoming extremely important. From an overall perspective, so that everybody is on the same page. I know that everybody understands what generative AI is, what large language models are, but in a truest sense, a large language model is nothing but based on the data that is provided to it, a mechanism where I know what the next word of the English or any other particular language is going to be based on some probabilistic activities based on the data that has been provided. Now, inherently, this particular generative AI, therefore, based on whatever all of us would have read, would have its own unique challenges, biases, hallucination, prompt engineering, and so on and so forth. So these particular areas are extremely exciting. From an overall perspective, what we see in the market, at least as a consulting organization, is that there's a lot of activity that's garnered interest for the purposes of using generative AI for business models. Increasingly recently, with some OEMs also sort of integrating generative AI into their security products, generative AI has become a strength for us to be able to actually do security also in a different way. So let's talk a little bit about this, and I'll request RP Singh sir, that from your side, so you're here more from a bank perspective, the other panels are more from the OEM standpoint. So from a bank's lens, what are you seeing in, let's say, your bank and with your peers of how generative AI is making a change in the overall conversation with your business, with your technology stakeholders, with let's say the board, etc.
Thank you. So actually this Gen AI word, what everyone is talking now, but AI was already there. See, so and no one was talking like how AI is responsible or how AI is ethical. But when Gen AI comes, so we need to understand Gen AI itself it generates its own something based on the pre-trained or based on the data what we provide. That's why question. See, today also bank is using AI in huge way. I would say data, analytics, AI, all three we combine. We are using in like enterprise fraud risk management. We are using in credit underwriting. We are using in the prediction, churn prediction. So lot of use cases. Even chatbot we are using. Let's say video KYC. So many places AI and data is used. But now once it comes to Gen AI, because Gen AI is the model which is trained on huge data set. Huge and data, it is giving the power to Gen AI. So that's why Gen AI, when we say responsible, means it should be not a bias, it should be a fairness. So if we talk about like CISO industry, so suppose I am a CISO of the bank, what is my concern area? So my concern area or every CISO industry concern area is first of the data breach. So how Gen AI can help to mitigate my data breach risk, or how Gen AI can help me to give early alert based on, so every bank I would say or every industry would be doing on threat hunting exercise. So doing threat hunting exercise is a huge exercise, because see, we are gathering lots of logs, sim logs. If we see someone is saying 2 lakh EPS per second, 3 lakh, 4 lakhs, that much logs are generated. So how generative AI can help in this? Because we have a data. Now we also need to take care how to reduce the false positive. Because generative AI is there, we are giving data, but ultimately it generates something on its own also. Till now AI was there, so it was giving insight from data. Now it is giving more than insight. It is creating its own. So we should be very, very careful. If you talk presently, I would just say, as a CISO, we have 2, 3, 4 major risk where I am looking Gen AI can help. First and foremost is threat detection and remediation alerts. Because we have logs, but ultimately today also in the network, we are not sure whether any malware is there sitting or there are any communication. So that we are doing threat network abnormality detection, threat detection. But we are in the process. Even Union Bank of India, if we say, we have already started the process. We have one stage we have crossed, and bank is again coming out with the detailed use cases. So we already 4 or 5 use cases. Normally what we thought, as you also asked, business use cases. So first and foremost, we are going to develop a chatbot using Gen AI for our HR. Because today employee also is the very, they are not able to get the right information and detail. So we will be loading the Gen AI model with all the my HR circulars, all the process SOP. So when anyone is looking for something, it will give a real this. Second one, we are also trying to create the use case for our help desk, because every bank is suffering. Whenever my branches, let's say we have 8,500 plus branches, my branches are suffering for repetitive type of problems. So if we load all the processes what we have, even though circular, every bank is issuing circular, but no one is having time to go through each one. So it will be very helpful for the branches. So that's why we are going to create Union Frontline Assistant. One already it is thought process, and we are in advanced stage to provide the chatbot for branches. And it will be, again, when we are taking care from beginning itself, what would be the benefit of, means how to control the input of the Gen AI model. So we are working on the prompt engineering part from beginning itself, so that whatever prompt we are providing, it should be careful. Second, also, we are working from beginning explainability, how to ensure the explainability on the Gen AI model. It should not be like that, whatever it is, answer is giving, no one knows how it is coming. So that is there. So from bank side, if you say, already bank has started journey, and use cases, we have business use cases as well as security use cases. So we are developing especially 3 model right now. For one, for the HR is related, second for the branch staff related, third for cyber security. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is wonderful, and I'm sure this resonates with all of us over here, because that's really what we are seeing as well. So there are business use cases that are getting discussed, and therefore on those business use cases, like sir mentioned, you need to have the ability to check whether those use cases are working under the parameters of what is safe from that particular perspective. Sudeep, if I can come to you really quickly. You come in from a lens where your organization is largely focused on the identification of issues which are technology in nature, which help the CISO function in an organization. Now, for the business use cases that we are talking about, what are you seeing as the trends? What are the questions that you are being asked, or what are the new age capabilities that your solutions are building for the purposes of some of these? I know AI and Gen AI sometimes are combined, but if you can focus on the Gen AI portions, both within the solution and for the business use cases.
Right. I mean, the biggest problem with security and technology vendors is that, am I solving a business issue, right? How do I translate these technical issues which are in thousands and lakhs in nature whether they are vulnerabilities or misconfigurations, there's a huge list. Does it really impact my business? Is it really going to be important for me to address them, which will ultimately lead to a issue that the bank might really be bothered about? Now, that translation is one of the cases which is a big data problem, because you have a single system could be affecting multiple businesses, and then there is a supply chain, and there is a what we call as the blast radius, right? A single technical problem could ripple and have a domino effect on many, many other systems. And a large number of vulnerabilities might have absolutely no impact, right? I can live with them, nothing would change. Now, this problem is where AI really helps, right? Look into the different angles, look into the different aspects of this particular data with respect to two things: business need, and the second is the world today really being bothered by that particular vulnerability, right? So there are the threat campaigns, the threat intelligence, which we normally say. So when I marry all this data together, the threat intelligence data, the known vulnerability data, the known misconfiguration data, and the business requirement, it becomes a biz data problem, right? And the business which we are in, we are talking about proactive security, which means I need to be able to tell the issue well in advance, which means if the issue is supposed to become something snowball into a bigger issue, can I predict that even though it looks small and handleable today, and I tend to say it is small, so I don't need to handle it, but within 7 days, within 14 days, it will snowball. Because of the nature of this problem, most probably I will have a malware using this particular vulnerability. That gives me more time and stitch in time or whatever, So I need to be able to, so that is where we started using AI to help me predict. So that was the predictability of AI. Again, the second thing which Sir mentioned, which is what we have used a lot, is the explainability part of it, right? These are complex technical issues. A new person really does not most probably know how AWS is handling its identity. And if I have to go and start understanding AWS identity to do identity management, it will take some time. So can I use a misconfigured identity in AWS and a misconfigured synced Google XOSYD and a misconfigured AD-ID and the IDs on which systems it is working? Now this is already, I'm sure it is sounding very complex. Can I use a simpler language? Can I use a more business-oriented language to explain this problem so that I can understand the risk and take a good decision? So AI is helping us create these. I was talking to Sir earlier, that attack path analysis. It's a big data problem. But Gen AI is really making attack path analysis a much more easier to digest, easier to take action on. So yes, Gen AI has given us more capability to provide data in a more meaningful manner, and that most 100% would help organizations to consume the vulnerability data better.
Excellent. No, these are some very important points. I think all of us grapple with large data, vulnerability data, data from the perspective of log ingested data, alert data, threat intel data. All of this data coming together, if it can be ingested in some particular manner, and then you can get real-time insights into that particular data. I think it's those are some very, very valid security use cases, and I'm glad that we are working towards this. Anthony, if I can come towards you. So look, at the bedrock of all of this is the whole business data. Everything else is either telemetry or it's something that's generated as a result of certain actions being performed by users. Now, in your realm of how you're seeing some of these particular activities play out, let's say you offer services around ransomware protection, etc. Do you see some of these particular areas becoming relevant for you, as a business, And second, when businesses are asking for data-centric, topics to be discussed for giving insights, how would some of the solutions that you're building be extrapolated, if at all? Do you see that, do you see that particular industry trend as well?
In fact, that's a great question. And more and more, I meet customers, these questions are coming up very frequently in all of our discussions, right? Now, when we're talking Gen AI, scarcity is the mother of all innovations, right? Data has been going exorbitant and nobody has control on that, right? The only thing what the AI had got it to some streamlined manner wherein we could get some intelligence which was relevant for businesses, the business use cases and stuff like that. And then we went one step ahead, inculcating the Gen AI to give us something predictive, okay? And of course, that has made a lot of business easy to consume, right? A lot of laymen who doesn't know what the technology is, they can still consume using Gen AI, those technologies, right? Eventually, what is happening is, this is also again bumping up more data. And the surface area of data, the attack area of data is getting increased day by day, right? And not to forget, since the organizations are using Gen AIs, of course, the bad actors or say the malicious actors, they are also using Gen AI to really get into how to get into your system, right? And we come as a vendor who plays that last line of defense. So by the time it comes to us, means all the damages has happened, right? So in the event there is a ransomware attack or the complete system is down, not necessarily every organization will have so much of skilled manpower to really work on that and bring up the systems as quick as possible, right? So something like Gen AI, if used in a positive sense, what it does is basically it gives you a guided simulations or an interactive session in terms of how to identify that threat, how to hunt that threat, and how to really recover from what are the steps that you need to take to recover from that ransomware without paying any ransom, right? So these are, of course, inculcated in all the say the new gen backup and cyber resilience technology, wherein these features really help even a unskilled person can really talk to the bot and can do step by step all the recovery point, right? So of course this as it comes with flaws, it also comes with a lot of advantages when we actually treat it in the right way.
Thanks, Anthony. I think you said it rightly. Somewhere there that there is, so data is being used to generate more data, and to generate intelligence out of that particular data, you now have the ability to do some of these particular elements in a more human-centric way, things that are easily understandable, and as a result of that, perhaps the activities can be articulated in a way where the explainability point comes in. Singh sir, if I can come back to you. So you mentioned some of those interesting use cases around HR. You talked about some of the use cases around the branches, etc. Coming back with repeated questions, and then you having some capability to answer those questions in an autonomous way. What are some of the risks that you are seeing in this, in order for you to be able to then sort of convey that these are the items that we need to sort of watch out for?
See, again, because this model, Gen AI model, everybody knows it is coming pre-trained. And even at open source also, if it is available, huge data point is there. So we cannot say you give me a model which is totally blank or formatted. on top of that, we are providing our data to train. So risk, let's say risk is there, first and foremost data leakage. See, and when we are even building, normally as a practice, we provide the actual data. So here as an organization, we need to take care PII data. See, that is, and also DPDP has come. So when any PII data is to be loaded in the model, it should not be real data. It should be like tokenized. So that what happens, we can get the insight, our behavior analysis, or some knowledge. But my data leakage risk, whatever the bank is or any organization is having, that can be minimized. Then second, regulatory compliance. Because see, these are the Gen AI is evolving, and day by day it is evolving. And when we talk about especially bank, the integrity of the data or confidentiality of the data is prime important. Even today, even technology is there or not, first and foremost is the confidentiality maintaining and integrity maintaining of the data is the most important aspect. So even the Gen AI, so I am the owner of the data. Whatever the data is loaded on the Gen AI is the responsibility of the organization to take care. It should not be data breach, should not happen. So we should not be giving raw data. It should be a tokenized or some any other method. It should be giving me the what value we are looking for. And again, the model should be regularly evaluated. It should not be like that. Once we developed, it is my perfectly it is giving. So evaluation should be there. We should be evaluating regularly. We should be monitoring. And again, if it is developed, there should be some sandboxing also, I feel, because when we need to test in the sandboxing environment, what is the output is coming, and rigorous, there should be a lot of risk is there, data risk, what I presume, and even false positive, because these are the training. So no substitute of training. The model should be trained in our data. Because it is pre-trained, I am as a CISO, I am scared what the response will be there and how to handle the false positive. Because ultimately, this is the what I see.
This is amazing. So from an overall perspective, how I hear you is that yes, we are interested in looking at this particular technology. Yes, there are advantages of this technology, but we need to watch out for some key items. One of those items being obviously the confidentiality and the whole trust equation around how the traditional IT systems were there. But this goes beyond that. This is about the results that are coming out of the equations. And these are not really linear equations where A gives B and B gives C, so A gives C. This could be something else coming up in between. And we don't really know whether the prediction is right. And what you're really saying is that there is training, which means there is human intervention that is needed to check whether the result is right or wrong at some particular point in time. And this is what one is seeing in the industry as well. So Sudeep, if I can come to you on this particular point. On the IT side, on the traditional IT side, when we had applications, when we had systems, when we had IP addresses and network devices and configurations, we knew that there are configurations that we need to have in a certain way. And we had the ability to do getters, setters, and test those particular items to come out with vulnerabilities. There is an OWASP top 10 on Gen AI also now. In that context, can you share some insights of what you're seeing in the industry, what is being requested, what is being asked for, specifically when it comes to this testing area?
Right. So the responsible AI, ethical AI, privacy of data within the AI engine. So there's all aspects of data that gets into the assessment categories, which ensures that if I am going to use this particular, if I may use the supervisory training models, is it complete so that there is no bias? How do I ensure that the data is complete? Who is monitoring this particular data? So there are those aspects which ensures that tools that I'm going to use are looking into the various aspects of data that is going into this Gen AI model and how the data is going to get. So earlier it was to be simple input validation. That was sufficient for me to say, yeah, it's not going to create an havoc or create a new query. We need to go now into the data itself, and that is why there are things like data security, posture management, etc., that has come into picture, which ensures that the completeness, the cleanliness, the privacy aspects of data, all of these aspects come into picture from the entire supply chain perspective. It's not just the engine that is going to use the AI, but the point that sir talked about, data is generating more data, and that data is generating more data. So there is a ripple effect again, which comes into picture as far as Gen AI or large data language models comes into picture, right?
All right.
So yeah.
You completed? Or you have
Yeah, I mean, see, it's again, the answer, one answer will lead to another answer. So yeah, I'm done.
No, I'm glad. So we have not orchestrated this, all right? And these the answers that are coming is actually helping me go to the next question as well. No, but this is extremely important that, when you come to the assessment piece, in the event of Gen AI, it's no longer a mathematical yes/no answer, right? It is, there are gray areas, and those gray areas need to have some abilities, etc., that you need to come in. So if I can come to you, Anthony, again. So we talked about the data, exodus, or not exodus, the expansion. And in that particular expansion, a few things become extremely relevant as well. And when you have Gen AI models which are actually running on this large data, as well as the processing power required for that particular data, can you shed light on how some of these particular items become relevant for data protection at the data security layer?
So, in fact, both sources brought up a very good point. One is the data security posture management, other is the ever evolution of data, right? So, what happens is data you don't have control on, right? That has already exploded and it will go on, right? The important part is, if we want to really control that, we need to classify that, right? That the data falls in what classification, whether it contains the PII or whether it is just a simple data which we can do about it. Okay, that is where the DSPM come into play, right? Wherein it exactly gives you the posture of your data, right? Who has access to it, right? Whether that person is supposed to have access to those data or not. How are they exploiting the network? All those postures it gives. That is where DPDPM has come, and now that the new rule of your protecting the personal identity, I don't know, probably after this session that might get passed as well. That is also going to increase more complexity to how you manage your data, right? But the point is, once your data is classified and you know where your sensitive data lies, more or less you're sorted, right? In the event there is any unforeseen circumstances, you know when to recover fast and where from to recover, right? And that also gives you a lot of checks and balances as to what type of securities you need to put in those kind of storage, or whether it be on-prem or whether it be in cloud, what kind of security posture you need to maintain to keep the hygiene of those data.
All right, thanks. I think, relevant point. So once you have some of these models being used for the purposes of business operations, there'll be data that is generated. Some of that data, as you rightly said, will have its privacy implications. The input data anyways has been protected because there were some traditional elements, but it's the new generated data which could have its own implications, and that needs classification and all of those particular processes as well. Absolutely. Sir, if I change tack, so we talked a little bit about the business. Let's come to the security side. So with a lot of these logs, with a lot of these particular events, the correlations and so on and so forth, we definitely see a lot of use cases. Do you see a trend in the ecosystem that you come from where there's innovation that is taking place in the way we do security?
Yes, actually, if you see the innovation especially is happening in digitization. See, today, most of the fintechs, if you see, I will just touch because lot of fintechs are coming and they are innovating product like anything. So, banking especially today, hundreds, more than hundreds of the fintechs, even Union Bank of India has impaneled for different kind of services. So, innovation is happening. Security is the by design as a principle we follow as an organization. Privacy by design we follow as an organization. So innovation and technology, we need to adopt early any technology. Even that's why I told Union Bank of India Gen AI project is already way ahead we are. So it is not that like that. And this security, if you say, we need also to develop the data governance framework or policy. So already as a bank organization, we have the robust data governance. Even today, any data, we have a huge number of elements of data. Any data, we are able to find who is the owner of this data. So the proper role data, because ultimately it is a long journey if we don't have the policy or framework. So simply saying risk mitigation or security, it is driven by policy. It is driven by governance. So how the robust policy we have set, how the governance we have set, but I am totally believer that new technology is going to help. We have to follow the best privacy practices, best ethical practices, best security practices to ensure my model, ensure my data should be safe and secure. And we have to go along with the new technology. There is no second thought. Now it is Gen AI. So what I see personally, implementation would be a challenge. Not only because of this risk or data, there is a cost also, huge cost is involved. And especially bank as an organization, we still in dilemma, private cloud, public cloud, private cloud, public cloud. So organization need to think because these models will be taking huge computational power. They need a huge capability to compute the data. So security definitely, it should be the prime factor, should be taken, and we are taking it. That's it.
This is another interesting aspect of this whole trust. I'm not too sure whether in the bank or whether in each of your banks also this is being discussed, but in some of the other particular private sector organizations where one has gone, one has seen the whole the sustainability and the environmental impacts of Gen AI being discussed as one of the trust elements, because consumers are asking that what are the practices that you're using, and if you're using these practices for my benefit, are they consuming more resources than they should actually? So that's an interesting point that you actually brought about. So the question to you. So in the testing space, in the assessments space, do you see any innovation from a security lens that is taking place to say that we'd be able to test some of these Gen AI models without the human intervention that is required, that makes it easier for some of us to be able to do to be able to roll out Gen AI models in the same safe and secure way more easily? Maybe DevSecOps, maybe something of that
Yeah,
nature.
I mean, see, I think you mentioned the biggest bottleneck of assessment technologies was it was to be done once in 6 months, once in 1 year. The frequency was always the biggest bottleneck in terms of delivering value out of an assessment service. By the time I was trying the mitigation, the assessment is already outdated. DevSecOps comes in and makes sure that it is a continuous process. So absolutely, that's where the innovation has really come in terms of introducing this testing earlier into the life cycle, shift left and all concepts have gone, has gained a lot of traction. We're doing OAS top 10 during the DevSecOps, right? We're not saying that once it is in production, that is the time I'm going to check whether it is compliant. I'm saying when I'm running, creating the first API, before getting into the next phase of CI/CD, I'm going to check it at that point of time. Earlier, it used to be just a code analysis. Now I'm doing code analysis as well as dynamic, assessment at the pipeline itself. So yes, making assessment, a more continuous, a more shift left activity is something that we have seen happening. We have seen data becoming a part of the assessment. We have seen the inclusion of identity vulnerabilities earlier in the life cycle happening. So the capabilities of GenAI to analyze all these different kind of vulnerabilities. Earlier it was just a CVE or a OASP. Now it is coupled by identity, coupled by data, and coupled by the ability to say that if this vulnerability is actually a part of a kill chain or not, right? Now, all of these aspects is becoming possible if I use a large language model. Otherwise, it would have been terrible. Excel sheets would have not done that, right? That's what VAPT was all about earlier.
Yeah, yeah. Coming back to you, Anthony, on these particular elements of protection, etc., and you using GenAI for the telemetry generation for your product to be able to assess whether there's been an impact or not, I think that's very well understood. Do you anticipate that this will have its own ramifications when it comes to the whole data protection regime that you will go in for, in days to come?
Yeah, definitely, that's a revolution which is already on and it will go on, because this is something we have just started adopting it, right? It will have its own mutants, it will take various forms and shapes, right? But the good part of it is, right, as Indians, we always look at things before it gets into production. We want to do a recheck of it, right? Even though we use Gen AI, we use AI ML, that was the earlier version of it. Now we are talking Gen AI, but still, maybe the desired state would be that everything goes automated without human intervention. But I see that is somewhere far than what we are today, right? And coming back to the earlier question which you had asked, sir, on the security part of it, right? I just want to add a few of them, right? Since I keep meeting different banks, almost all the banks I have met, the definition of security for each bank is different, right? It's like no one shoe doesn't fit all sides, right? So, what may be the security policy for bank A may not be for bank B, and then interestingly, the justification what bank B has nothing to do with bank A. It's all about internally what maybe the security team or the leadership team decide this is how we want to be secured. The policies go that way. But at the same time, when the technology is ever evolving, right? Some point of time you will have to embrace the new technologies. And new technologies, of course, comes with certain threats, which you need to find a way how to mitigate that, right? Like initially banks are very reluctant to move to cloud, right? There is a lot of resistance from RBI, this security, that security, all those stuff. But finally, they found a way how to mitigate those securities and started moving. They started moving to cloud. Likewise, whenever GenAI is a new thing, it has its own pros, its own cons, right? It's definitely very useful and handy for any layman to use it. But at the same time, since as almost it use OpenAI, which is vulnerable, definitely. So whatever the outcome is, could also be vulnerable. So that is where the security checks and balances has to be.
Absolutely. So I think you I think summed it up very rightly. This is an ever evolving journey at this present moment. There are certain things that are very easily doable, where you are seeing some adoption, both for business cases where the private data, etc., is not involved. I think those particular use cases you'll see proliferate a lot more. When it comes to the private data, citizen data, etc., where DPDP becomes important, I think it will take some time. So all of these particular points are valid. I think in conclusion and summary, I think all of us are headed in that particular direction. There are checks and balances that each of our organizations is putting in place for getting some of these particular items out there for people to start using. I think it is important for us to be aware that there are risks associated to these particular capabilities. Those particular risks have their corresponding addressing measures, and those particular measures are the ones that we need to sort of inculcate within the organization governance mechanisms for us to take those forward. So thanks so much, panel. Really appreciate your time. I know it was immediately after lunch, but thanks, audience. If there are any questions, we are here. We can answer those particular questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would request our panelists for a group photograph, please. May I now request Shri K. Srinivas Rao to present a memento to our distinguished panelists. I would like to thank all panelists on sharing your vision and deep insights. It surely has added immense value to the discussions on the chosen topic. And thank you, audience. This surely has made the discussions interesting.